Kol Nidre begins. The room is filled with the haunting melody, the weight of the day, the collective hush of a community standing before God. Tonight, more than any other night, we are called to listen. Rabbi Levi once taught a parable about the prophet Elijah. Elijah, or as many of us know him, Eliyahu Hanavi, is perhaps the most beloved prophet in the Bible. According to tradition, Elijah frequently comes down to earth to help Jews in distress or reveal secrets of Torah to our great scholars. Rabbi Levi taught that when Elijah fled to the mountain, he sought God in thunder and fire. A great wind came and shattered the rocks. Elijah thought, this must be God. Yet the Holy One was not there. Then fire blazed around him, but again, God was not there. At last came a whisper, softer than breath, a silence filled with presence. Elijah covered his face, for in the stillness, he found God. So too, said Rabbi Levi, do not say that God is only in the noise of armies or in the fire of anger or in the shaking of nations. Rather, God is in the quiet word of kindness, the pause between arguments, the soft prayer of the heart. For the world endures not by the roar of the strong, but by the still, small voice of compassion and truth. That ancient story isn't just about Elijah, it's about us too. Like Elijah, we often look for God in the noise, in the drama. But the real challenge is to hear the holy in quiet. For a rabbi or cantor, this isn't really a quiet time of the year. The high holidays are filled with sound, the raw, unadorned cry of the shofar breaking through stillness, the swell of our voices as prayers rise and fall together, the whispered murmur of confessions, private and trembling, the rustle of prayer books turned in unison like a sea of paper waves. And we conclude Yom Kippur by pounding a nail into a piece of wood as we begin the first step towards building our sukkah. Zman Simchatenu, our season of joy. Where the high holidays cry out with yearning, Simchat Torah bursts with celebration, singing that spills over into shouting, a jubilant din, a cacophony of joy. It's a high and a low and a high again. But last year, throughout these holidays, I knew that my mother was dying. I look at pictures from that Simchat Torah night now, and I can see it written on my face. The pain, the strain, the heartbreak that no one else could read at the time. Everyone around me was dancing with the Torahs, singing with abandon, their voices rising in joy. It was the anniversary of October 7th. We vowed to dance again, and so we took our special Torah, named after Sergeant Gedalia, and we took our Torah that survived the Holocaust, and we danced. It should have been one of the most celebratory nights of the year, and on the outside, I was moving with everyone, but on the inside, I was somewhere else. The joy, the laughter, the music, it all pressed in on me until it felt overwhelming. Before the sun came up the next morning, we boarded a plane to Boston. The contrast could not have been sharper, from the noise of dancing and song to the quiet of that early morning flight. I can still remember how deafening that silence felt. The noise of the season is glorious. It wakes us up, it shakes us, it binds us to each other. But in the hush after the final hakafah, in the stillness of the sanctuary after the shofar's last blast, words fall away, and what remains is silence. And on that early morning, there was no music, no shofar, no celebration. There was only the heaviness of grief pressing in on every breath. In her last years, my mother had become a quiet presence in my life. She stayed in Boston and therefore wasn't physically in the sanctuary with me. But she was still there, always there. She watched every service faithfully on Facebook or Zoom. You know that, as sometimes she would debate with you as to whether her rabbi was better than your rabbi. I was always afraid to ask if she meant me over Andrew or her rabbi at home over us. But we always knew that she was there. With every service, I would look up at the camera, smile, or just hold her gaze through the lens. I wanted her to know, I see you. I know you're here. After services, she would sometimes send a little direct message, nothing long, just a heart emoji, or you look tired, but I'm proud of you. Or that song brought me back to my childhood. They were simple words, but they carried so much weight because they came out of her quiet watching, her steady presence. And now, as I approach her first yahrzeit in just a couple of weeks, I find myself listening for her in new ways, finding her in the spaces between the noise. The noise of the world has not grown softer. If anything, it's only louder. The endless news cycle, the constant scroll, the shouts of anger and division, the clamor of daily obligations. But her absence, her silence, has become its own kind of teacher. It reminds me of Elijah's story. God was not in the wind, not in the fire, not in the earthquake. God was in the still, small voice. My mother's presence in those last years was like that. Not loud, not dramatic, not demanding, but steady, constant, quiet. And I realize now how much that shapes me as a rabbi, because this work, our work of leading and being in community, is often loud. It's filled with meetings, programs, services, conversations, celebrations, and crises. But when I think of my mother, I remember that sometimes the most powerful way we show up for someone is not with 1,000 words, not with a big solution, but with quiet presence, just being there, just listening, just a smile into the camera to say, I know you're here. Mourning has taught me to hear silence differently. At first, silence felt like emptiness, like loss, like something missing. But slowly, I've learned that silence can also be full. Silence can carry memory. Silence can carry love. Silence can be the space in which we finally hear the still, small voice, God's, our loved ones, even our own. And so, when I think about my mother now, I hear her not in the loudness of the world, but in the quiet. I hear her in the pause between prayers, in the stillness before Kol Nidre begins, in the silence after a difficult conversation when no words are enough. I miss her with every fiber of my being, but I know that she is not gone. She's present in the quiet. And in that quiet, I've learned to listen more deeply for her, for myself, and for God. We live in an incredibly noisy time. Not only the literal noise of phones buzzing, news alerts, political arguments, and constant updates, but also the inner noise of worry, judgment, comparison, and shame. And that's why we need Yom Kippur more than ever. It strips all of that away. No food, no work, no emails. It's a day for silence, reflection, and listening for what we might otherwise miss. The paradox of this night is that it's both loud and quiet. In a minute, we will sing Avinu Malkeinu, one of the loudest, most communal prayers of our liturgy. We belt it out together, sometimes even shouting with yearning. Yet the very message of Yom Kippur is that God is not in the earthquake, fire, or thunder, but in the still, small voice. Avinu Malkeinu is communal. Our parent, our sovereign, our sins, our needs, our hopes. It's the collective cry of the Jewish people. And yet Yom Kippur is also profoundly personal. Behind the communal chorus, each of us is whispering our own prayer, our own hopes, regrets, longings. The still, small voice is the hidden layer beneath Avinu Malkeinu, the individual whisper of every heart. And the voice itself is simple. Avinu Malkeinu isn't intricate poetry, it's raw and childlike. Our parent, our sovereign, be gracious to us, answer us. Just as Elijah found God not in dramatic power, but in simplicity, in quiet, in stillness, so too our deepest spirituality often emerges not in grandeur, but in the stripped down, unguarded voice of the soul. There are stories our tradition tells about the power of silence. A king once asked his wise men to inscribe a message on a ring that would give him strength in times of trouble and humility in times of triumph. They engraved 4 words, Gam ze ya'avor, this too shall pass. When the king first read it, he did not speak. He sat in silence. It wasn't the words, but the silence in which he absorbed them that gave him peace. A chassid once came to his Rebbe pouring out his troubles and confusion. The Rebbe listened, nodded, and said nothing. Minutes passed, then more. The chassid wept, then breathed more calmly, then smiled. He kissed the Rebbe's hand and left in peace. When asked why he had said nothing, the Rebbe replied, because sometimes silence is the only answer that allows the soul to hear itself. So tonight, I ask you, what is that still small voice that you have been ignoring? Is it calling you to repair a broken relationship, to treat yourself with more compassion, to show up in the world differently? We will soon raise our voices together in Avinu Malkeinu, but as we sing, I invite you to listen for something beneath the music, your own still small voice. For in that quiet place, you may hear God. This Yom Kippur, may we quiet the noise, hear the whisper of our better selves, and have the courage to begin again. And may the memories of those who taught us, by presence or by silence, by word or by love, continue to be a still small voice within us. For me, I will be listening for my mother's voice, soft but steady, reminding me to live with compassion, courage, and truth. If we only listen to the noise of the world, we miss what matters most. The whisper of God, the presence of those we love, the truth within ourselves. So yes, sing Avinu Malkeinu with all your heart, cry out with the community, but then let there also be a pause. In that pause, listen. What is your heart saying? What is God saying? What voice have you been avoiding? This Yom Kippur, the invitation is simple. Let the noise fall away and make space for the whisper. Before we sing together, I invite you to take one deep breath. Let the noise of the day fall away. Feel the quiet of this moment, the stillness that holds us all. And now, out of that silence, we lift our voices. Each of us carries our own story, our own prayers, our own cries. But together we rise as one people with one heart, one voice. Avinu Malkeinu, page 452.